for Wednesday, November 10, 2021. Also notable date in history because it's the birthday of Community Development Specialist Shannon Graff, over here to my right.
Happy birthday.
I was pressured into doing that. First item on our agenda tonight is approval of the minutes from our meeting of last week, the 2nd of November, and I must thank Vice Chair Watson for covering for me so well at that meeting. I have since, watched the video and read the minutes, and he did a splendid job against all odds. So thank you for that. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? I have one from Watson. Do I have a second? From Killian? Thank you. Any concerns about the minutes? Changes? Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item, our special item on the agenda, discussion and possible action on proposals received for the West Side Battery RFP, the ongoing saga. Would you like to kick us off there?
Sure. We wanted to reconvene this body to discuss the proposals received on the RFP. We have both Trent Clabo from, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Clabo, from Gorman, and Chuck Godorsey from WAS here to answer any questions. You had the presentations at this just over a week ago on November 2nd. So I know that there were some lingering questions from those, and they are here to answer those.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I'll start us off. Where we left off last time was that in the WAS proposal came a summary completed by REI of site conditions, and including a utility line or a lateral that crosses the property. We had asked if the proposers that had crafted the proposal from Gorman were aware of that, and now that they are, is that a deal breaker in their proposal, or are they able to work around it? So I think, having had some time to digest all of that, I would like to hear if they're able to overcome that obstacle or what.
Thank you. If you could just give us your name, please.
Sure. My name is Trent Claba. I'm from Gorman Company. So over the past week, we had a chance to review more of the site-specific details, and our architect and their engineers were able to kind of look into some of these issues and limitations. And it is true, the site is very constrained in several ways, notably the utility easement that goes down, the center of the site, and the sanitary sewer line that's on would need to be relocated. And we had them do some cost estimates for, rerouting the sanitary sewer line, the electric lines, and the stormwater drainage that's on the south end, or on the north end of the adjacent property to the south. Based on the cost estimates that we got from our engineering firm and their, or our architecture firm and their engineering associates, we think that, we had enough buffer built in to our model to kind of weather those concerns. With that being said, we still need to get a geotechnical report to kind of understand, beyond just relocating those three utilities, what kind of issues we're going to face on that front and what kind of costs will be associated with that. But I mean, without having the RFP secured, it's kind of difficult for us to go through, and because that'll be a timely and expensive process.
Right.
But I still think that even beyond kind of the cost of relocating those utilities, that we still have quite a bit of buffer built in. When I was creating the model for this site and for this project, I knew that this was an incredibly constrained site that was going to require extensive geotechnical engineering, and I built in quite a significant buffer to try and weather any concerns that would come up.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? We're going to be going into closed session tonight to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty on some stuff. I wonder if the committee, because, it's been a little bit challenging for me to put my brain around it, has a feeling for sort of the bottom line, the financial bottom line, that, we might be comparing between these two proposals. That might be in terms of, land swap, or it might be in terms of expected tax revenue, cost, all those elements. And when we get down to column A and column B, what does the dollar thing look like? Sure like to see like that kind of information. Maybe we can kind of unravel that in closed session tonight. But that's not the only, consideration as well, because we have to look in terms of, best use and, what do we really want to see happening. So, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think given the outcome of last night's council meeting, we know now that grant applications are going out tomorrow for the state neighborhood program that was approved last night. One of those projects is the local share of this project, assuming it's selected. If that's awarded, that essentially covers that ask without TID dollars, without municipal borrowing and debt. And I think that really sets us on a whole new footing in terms of funding and partnership if we are able to secure that funding. So I think that does open up some new avenues for us if that project would be awarded from our applications.
Sure, I mean, the best case, but,
Right.
what's worst case? But
Right.
Alder Watson.
I guess I had one more question for you, too. You had mentioned that you were investigating that parcel across the street.
Yes.
Did you track anything down with that?
No, yeah, I have contacted the owner of that parcel. I've actually been in contact with him for some time, and they said for the right price, they'd be willing to sell it. So I kind of have, I've been kind of keeping them on the sideline because, of course, we're not sure if this is something, we're going to be awarded. So, but we did identify a price that we think would be reasonable, and they did indicate a willingness to sell.
Okay. And I guess my other comment about this project, I mean, although, there's some swapping and stuff of land, I think with the WAS proposal, but I think this would be it's a great affordable housing apartment complex, and if we could pull it off, I think it'd be great, so.
Thank you. Anything else from the committee? No other questions for the proposers? Okay, then I would welcome somebody read, go ahead. Mr. Dorsey, come on up.
I thought I would have a chance. I was supposed to go first, but you called him Trent first, so anyway, I have Tom Radance here with me tonight too, and so thank you. I know you folks put in a lot of time. Let me just, first of all, start out and say that I know the Gorman Group. We've been in Madison together. They do excellent projects. I think we should be very happy that they're interested in our community. I know when they were looking at the landmark, I would call Ted Matcom and bring him up to date as to where we were on the mall, just simply because I wanted to encourage him, to take over the landmark, and I think they're going to do a great job with it. So first of all, I just want to say that about the Gorman Group. Secondly, certainly we need these apartments in our community, and as we have talked before in terms of the overall plan, we need 1,000 to 1,300 units, and we think we can handle that of all types, whether they be workforce, whether they be market, whether they be senior, whether they be student, and we have a very good opportunity in our downtown to be able to create these spaces. I think we have some good land. So, kind of what I wanted to do tonight is if you would, is just dialogue, if you would, on some of the points involving this site. And so, first of all, I just want to touch again a little bit on vision, and in the fact that when we started this project of revitalizing our downtown, we started looking at, well, where does this downtown begin? And we kind of started on the corner of Washington and First, and then as time went on, we looked at the neighborhood planners' work, some great work relative to the South Riverfront. And then we started going across the river, the kayak course, and we were able to pick up the powerhouse and then the depot. And now all of a sudden, this view line, which I've been talking about, has been expanded back to 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue. And so WAS's interest, and hopefully it's taken this way, is just simply to be able to look at this site and see if there is some opportunity for our community to save it. Their interest is just simply to give it back to the community, make it an exciting site. I think there's all kinds of opportunities that we have there. And so that would be one thing. And a second thing, whether or not we're trying to somewhat put 5 pounds in a 20-pound bag. So that's one thing. I think secondly, if we look at the possibility, okay, of where we could do this, this project, a good project, whether there's other opportunities, if you would, in our downtown. I think when you look at the neighborhood planners plan, I mean, that's a great plan. You start out with a hotel, you go into a Four Seasons farmer's market, you have a new South Riverfront Drive, you have apartments and et cetera on both sides. I would suggest that, there possibly be some backup to this site that Gorman would look at. I think there's some sites available on South River Drive that would probably offer more opportunity for more apartments. If they wanted to even do more apartments, I think we have some. I always like the parcel on the Wausau Floral site, where you could phase more apartments in and so forth. So, as we look at this, I would just ask, whether or not that's the scenario. I know Trent brought up the fact that we have these issues, and there's money in the budget to cover these issues. There's another side of that, when we get into a site like this and you have costs that run up to about $315,000, I think it's something like that per unit. That's way above where the market is. The market right now is probably more at 195 to 200. So the fact that they ran that up and there's additional costs with the site, think what we could do in terms of getting more units if we had the right site and we didn't have to do these improvements. And then let's look at the improvements, if you would. When you look at the site, and Trent mentioned it, we still have work to do. What does it look like? More often than not in these sites, I mean, you have sawdust and you have wood chips and you get into geopilings. There's probably about 50 or 60 of them in this building. You get into sheet pilings, in which you have to really sheet off the street and the railroad. Tom will speak to those issues a little bit, and I appreciate that he's here. But you start getting into expenses, around those issues, removing soils, demo of the building. And then you have the sanitary sewer line and the lift stations and so forth. And granted, there might be money in it. I'm just saying, there's plenty of money to probably build a few more apartments like this on a better site. I think if you just look a little bit, and I'll close with this, and whenever we look at a site, we start off by calling Tom Radance and saying, Tom, what do you know about this site? What are the limitations? And are those limitations such that we should look elsewhere? And so the document that Tom put together was really for WAS. Tell us, if we're going to purchase this, tell us what the complications are. And I think we should know those. I think Trent should know. I think we should go into this, if you would, eyes open. I'll conclude this way, and I'll ask Tom to come up. My interest here tonight is, I think if we can just relax a little bit, take a step back, and give Trent and Gorman the opportunity to look at what these issues are and how they're going to solve these issues, and whether or not there are other possibilities, and give the city a chance to figure out how we are going to help them out. There's real truth to gap. I mean, this 1.7 million in this project, if they had to finance it, it would go up to 2.4 million. I mean, the taxes on this are estimated to be 56,000. The debt service on that would be 156,000. So it means that the city is going to have to come up and look at ways in which we can help Gorman out. And are we prepared to do that? And are we prepared to look at it? And I would suggest we as a community need to figure that out as well. So giving some time in which to just say, okay, let's figure out how we're going to finance it. Let's figure out how we're going to build it. and maybe that all comes together and it works, or maybe it works better on a different spot. So I just want to turn it over to Tom.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alder Killian.
Yes, I think it would be more appropriate if Gorman presented its plans rather than have Mr. Gadorzi and Waz present for Gorman. Gorman has just stated that they have reviewed this internally and have communicated their comfort level. We had the opportunity to review the documents from REI that Mr. Gadorzi passed out at the last meeting, and I think it would be more appropriate if each party presented their own presentation rather than lambasted the other. Thank you.
Thank you. It's well taken. Mr. Redan, just if I may for a moment. Trent, maybe you could come forward. I want to make sure that we're not, replowing old ground. I mean, are there going to be considerations voiced by Mr. Redenz that you're already aware of and have made, accommodations for? Or, are you thinking maybe I should step back, maybe I should take more time? What is your concern about time, and what is your concern about the property conditions that you've been supplied?
Sure, so I can't speak to what he's going to talk about today. I'm not sure what he's going to talk about today. What I can tell you is what we've accounted for and the things that I explained earlier for relocating those 3 key utilities, and the expectation that we will need to do a geotechnical report going forward. But again, it's difficult for us to commit to that sort of thing without, because it's a significant investment of time and resources and money. And, we need to know that we're going to be going forward with this before we really take that extra step. But we have accounted for, again, reassigning or rerouting those 3 key utilities. And I feel comfortable stating that I, again, built this financial model, and it's at $285 per unit as it sits right now. And right now, from our accounting and what I know it should be, somewhat like $265. I kind of built it with this kind of very large buffer between $750,000 and $1 million to account for these sort of issues. So that's what I can tell you right now. And that was reflective of that $1.7 million gap that you saw last week and that's in the packet.
Could you address any sense of urgency that Gorman might have in terms of timelines and such, that, sitting back and taking stock of other opportunities and thinking about it and deciding later, are these options or not attractive at this point?
So the tax credit application for competitive applications is due on December 10th. And we actually already had to submit, we're going through the process of compiling our checklists and documents. And even today, we had to submit letters with our social service providers that are going to be providing social services at our upcoming tax credit application proposals today to the state so that they can sign off on those. So, really, it's kind of too late in the game this round to take stock of other opportunities. And, with that being said, we're always going to be interested in doing work in this community. It's been great, especially our experience with Landmark, and we'd love to keep doing work up here. So, but again, in terms of right now, we are working on a very short timeline. This is very, urgent.
Okay, very good. It's well taken. All right, Mr. Redenz, having heard Alder Killian's concern and what Trent has just said, is there anything that you would be bringing to us tonight that would be above and beyond what has already been covered or supplied to the developer? Anything revelatory tonight?
To Chuck's point, I'm the buzzkill on most projects because we get into and objectively look at sites. And the real concern we had was, one, the sanitary sewer line. When you look at opportunities to move it, it's laid at minimum grade now, 0.028%. And so to move it may require a pump. So not to say that these challenges can't be overcome. The other thing we looked at was we contacted the sheet piling folks down on a Custer. And if we're going to construct up against the right-of-way, to put sheet piling along First Avenue could be very difficult. The depth of bedrock could be a challenge. There's a dam on the river for a reason, because bedrock must be close. And none of us have done any geotech on that. And so even though You can say we can put sheet piling there. I don't know if it's possible. And then also along the railroad. When you're working next to railroad, you have to have zero forgiveness on vibration, sheet piling, and securing those walls. And that would be the other area that we had concern. On the southwest corner of the site, there's a very large transmission line. We've worked around those in Green Bay. We did a large development. We had to stay a number of feet away from them because depending on the voltage, and we didn't get to the point of looking at the voltage, but when we looked at the site for WAS, we kind of crossed off the southwest corner of the site because of the distance you need to stay away from those transmission lines. And we moved some transmission lines in Green Bay, and it was very expensive to relocate that one. We didn't look at relocating, we just kind of crossed off that southwest corner of the site because of that. So I think there's some serious limitations. I don't know that all of them can be overcome and keep the same footprint that was presented. Can the site be developed? Absolutely. It could be developed, but maybe not to that degree.
Thank you. Trent, I think at the meeting from last week, there was a talk of potentially going to your enclosed parking on grade, rather than, going, subgrade. Is that still something that is like an option within your plans?
It is an option. Again, we'd have to get somewhat creative with that. We still need to take stock of, how many spots that we can fit across the street, and we'd have to have our architect because as a requirement of the tax credit program, a certain percentage of the units need to be at-grade townhomes. So it'd be taking stock of what kind of parking we could fit along with those townhomes on the bottom floor. Actually, in the building I live in Madison, the first floor is, half parking and half kind of at-grade 3-bedroom units, kind of in a similar fashion, and then the parking that could potentially be available across the street. Ideally, though, we would be going underground.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think having read the proposals in advance of our last meeting, between that dialogue and the dialogue that we've had here, I would be comfortable conducting our closed session discussion at this point. I guess if you want me to read the motion?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'll move that we go into closed session pursuant to Chapter 19.85, Sub 1, Paragraph E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session for the purpose of consideration of development proposals received for West Side Battery RFP.
Thank you. Do I have a second from the committee? I have a second from Watson. Thank you. We'll do roll call. Rasmussen?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Killian?
Aye.
McElhenney?
Aye.
And Chair says aye. We're going to go into closed. Thank you.